Good evening. I'm Julia Samuel, Founder Patron of Child Bereavement UK, and I'm an extremely proud advisor of Children of Jannah. And I'm incredibly sorry that I cannot be with you here this evening. I can see you all there and very much wish I was amongst you. And it was my complete idiocy that I made a mistake in my diary, that I have a commitment that I can't get out of. So I am very happily transmitting this message to you in as live and a heartfelt way as I can, in the wish and the belief in all the work that Children of Jannah does, that I can endorse it as their advisor. And Children of Jannah started from such small beginnings, and such a personal, devastating story of the death of Haviza's nephew. And it is often from those most personal experiences that the most universal learnings and impact can be made. And like all of you here this evening, I have been deeply impressed by the value and the difference that this initially small and now much bigger organisation has made to the Muslim community. And it has made it to both individual families as well as the professionals who work with those families, who really make a difference to those families' lives. And it has made a difference to them here in the UK as well as worldwide. The first time I met Haviza and Rizwan was on a kind of ordinary training day in Manchester, and little did I know what it would mean for me with them. But I remember very clearly being deeply impressed by their natural empathy, their intelligence, and their passion to do this work, and their kind of hunger for knowledge, and this hunger of knowledge of both the theories and the practice around bereavement, which they could then integrate into their faith perspective. And that has been their kind of unique contribution, I think, to the bereavement field, this combination of the two. And launching here in London is, a very important key next step in their establishment, which enables them to reach many more thousands of bereaved families. And as much as sometimes I've been encouraging them to learn to say no because there's such a demand for what they do, I couldn't support more their launch here in London, and encourage all of you who are part of that launch and who will be involved in this work, either in actually partaking of the work or fundraising for it or helping to fundraise for it or volunteering, that it couldn't be a bigger foundation stone in ensuring that bereaved families in the Muslim community get the right kind of support that they need at such a devastating time. And it is bereaved families who are at the heart of the work of Children of Jannah. And of course they absolutely should be, because it is shattering when a child dies. And I don't think any of us can even begin to imagine what that is like until it has been our own experience. And it may be the sudden death of a 2-year-old through a road traffic accident, or it may be a fatal diagnosis of a 10-year-old, or it could be a stillbirth, a neonatal death, or a miscarriage. Each of those losses has their own unique and complex difficulties for that individual, for that family, and for everybody they come into contact with, to find a way of living with that reality, which is, of course, a reality that nobody wants to live with. Because the death of a child has unique properties, as you all know. It is a death out of time. It is the reverse of nature. So it forces us to face something that most of us are blissfully ignorant and, as I said before, can barely think about. And what research shows about these families is that although there are particularly devastating circumstances for death, there are bad deaths and good deaths, what research shows is that it isn't the circumstances of the death that really indicate positive or negative outcomes for that family, but it is the support at the time and following the death that will predict negative and positive outcomes. And that support comes in many different ways. Of course, it will come from that individual family's friend and family network and their own natural capacity to manage difficulty. And part of that will be their cultural belief system. And as you well know, when something devastating happens, it strikes us at the heart of our belief system, and it can really force us to question all that we've trusted in. It turns our life upside down. And there can be a real complexity around religion and grief, where it can be hard to, within the Islamic perspective, it can be hard to accept the will of God and also to grieve. And Children of Jannah have found a really important contribution to make of how they contribute to an understanding of that. And to add to that support that the families need following a death, they also train the professionals, maybe the doctors, maybe the midwives, maybe the police, who would have to enter the home if there was a sudden death, unexpected death at home, so that every one of those professionals who come into contact with a Muslim family when a child dies needs to understand their perspective so that they can respond to their individual needs sensitively, particularly around the complexity of, there may have to be a post-mortem. So to understand the religious perspective of that family and find a way of sensitively communicating having to have a post-mortem is crucial, not to do harm when something so bad has happened. Because how people communicate, the way they say things, can live long in the memory of the family after the tragedy has happened, and it can make what's already bad worse. So it is so important that everybody who comes into contact with the family has a real proper understanding of the Islamic perspective. But also the importance of Children of Jannah, a faith-based organisation, is that they can offer their unique way of support themselves through their volunteers of web, email and counselling. Because when tragedy strikes, we feel so isolated and alone anyway. And so if we reach to an organisation where we feel there is already a natural understanding of our beliefs and our faith, that removes a kind of natural block of isolation, so that there's a whole level of understanding that is already in place. I must say, having said that, as someone who comes from a different faith, I think it's also important to understand, which I know Children of Jannah do, that even if you're a Christian or a Muslim, we each have our own individual subjective way of practicing that. And so that needs to be kind of included in the kind of religious understanding too, that each person's perspective of their faith and how that is expressed is uniquely their own. And my final sort of message to you, which I know Haviza has valued, is that all of you who are going to be working in London or who work with bereaved families is to find ways of supporting yourself. The work that you do is profoundly meaningful, and I know that must in some way make a difference to you and your value of yourself. But it also can't not affect you. We know from neuroscience that every interaction that we have leaves a mark on us, leaves a marker in our system. It's embodied. So that if we are dealing with these incredibly difficult, painful stories, they can't not have an impact on us. So my belief, and something I kind of valiantly shout about and actually do for myself too, is that we have to take seriously our support for ourselves. We have to, if we're going to be professional, whether we're a volunteer or whether we're paid, is that part of our professional practice is to look after ourselves so that we have physiological and psychological health. And that ensures that then when we respond to families, we're able to do it from a kind of clean, healthy base, not one that is slowly worn away. I mean, I don't have the time now to go into the different ways of how you support yourselves, but it would be a combination of both exercise is the one I use that is kind of most fast track and immediate in releasing the kind of physical impact of working with bereaved families, like going for a run or kickboxing or meditation, the other end of it, but also having some kind of narrative, whether it's with a peer or supervisor, so that we find ways of getting out these stories that we kind of hold in our systems, so they don't stay alive in our systems, but we can kind of file them and put them away. So it has felt strange speaking to you without actually seeing you, but I have pictured Haviza and Rizwan as I've been speaking today. I again feel so sorry that I'm not personally present, but really believe me that I believe in all that you do. I congratulate you on what you've achieved so far. I have every belief that you will grow and make a difference to so many bereaved families, Muslim bereaved families, and also encourage everybody who is there to support you in your growth. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I will definitely make a visit to Manchester to make up for my absence today, and because it would be a pleasure to see your new offices there. And wish you all the very best in your future. Thank you very much.